Captain Lee Daeho stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. Kepler 442 was huge, bigger than any structure humans had ever built. It floated in empty space between star systems, neutral ground where different alien species could meet safely. "First time seeing aliens up close, Captain?" asked Dr. Park Sora, the ship's chief scientist. She was young but brilliant, chosen to help humans understand alien cultures. "First time for all of us," Lee Daeho replied. He was 45 years old with gray hair and steady hands. The Earth government had picked him to lead this mission because he stayed calm under pressure. Today, he would need that skill more than ever. The New Horizon carried 200 humans, diplomats, scientists, engineers, and security guards. This was humanity's first real meeting with the Galactic Council. For months, they had exchanged radio messages with 12 different alien species. Now they would meet face to face. Commander Kim Tae-min walked onto the bridge. He was head of security, a serious man who worried about everything. "All teams are ready, Captain. But I still don't like this. Too many unknowns." "The aliens have been friendly in all our talks," said Ambassador Choi Ye-jin as she joined them. She was Earth's top diplomat, smart and hopeful about the future. "This is history in the making. First contact with a peaceful galactic community." Lee Daeho nodded but understood Kim Tae-min's concerns. Humans had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries. Now it was happening and everyone felt nervous. The space station's docking bay was enormous. As the New Horizon settled into place, they could see alien ships of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like metal flowers, others like giant insects, and some were just strange geometric shapes that hurt to look at. "Docking complete," announced the pilot. "Station atmosphere is safe for humans." The first aliens they met were tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. They called themselves the Vectar and seemed excited to meet humans. Their leader, Ziktal, spoke through a translation device that made his voice sound musical. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Ziktal said. "We have waited long to meet your kind. Your radio signals showed great wisdom and creativity." Dr. Park Sora smiled widely. She had studied alien languages for years, preparing for this moment. "Thank you for this honor. We bring gifts from our world to share with yours." The ceremony hall was incredible. Thousands of aliens filled the space. Some floating, some crawling, some walking on legs humans couldn't count. The walls showed images of different worlds, beautiful planets with strange colors and impossible landscapes. Ambassador Choi Ye-jin presented humanity's gifts. They had brought paintings, music, poems, and scientific discoveries. The aliens seemed genuinely interested, especially in human music. One species made of living crystal actually changed colors when they heard Beethoven. "Your people show great promise," said another alien leader. "This one looked like a walking tree with golden bark. The galaxy needs more creative minds like yours." For 3 hours, everything went perfectly. Humans learned about alien technologies, art, and philosophy. The aliens asked endless questions about Earth, its oceans, its animals, its different human cultures. Lee Daeho began to relax. Maybe this would work out after all. Then the explosion started. The first bomb went off near the main entrance. The blast threw humans and aliens across the room. Before anyone could react, armed figures in dark armor poured through the smoke. They carried weapons that fired red energy beams, and they were shooting everything that moved. "Get down," shouted Commander Kim Tae-min, pulling out his sidearm. But the aliens' weapons were much more powerful than anything humans had brought. Lee Daeho saw Dr. Park Sora trying to help an injured Vectar when one of the attackers shot her in the back. She fell forward, her eyes wide with shock, and didn't get up. Ambassador Choi Ye-jin was running toward the emergency exits when 3 attackers surrounded her. Their leader was tall and moved like a snake walking upright. His species had green scales and yellow eyes that seemed to glow with hate. "You are the human leader," the snake-like alien hissed. "Perfect, please," Choi Ye-jin said, raising her hands. "We came in peace." "We're diplomats. Peace is weakness," the alien replied. Then he shot her. The attack lasted only 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. When the shooting stopped, 183 humans were dead. Captain Lee Daeho had taken a blast to his shoulder and could barely stand. Commander Kim Tae-min had died protecting civilian crew members. Only 17 humans survived. The snake-like aliens were called the Nagthul, part of something called the Helix Syndicate. Their leader stood over the bodies and spoke into a recorder. "Let this be a message to all who would challenge Helix expansion." These humans thought their words and gifts would protect them. Now they feed the void. After the attackers left, the other alien species came out of hiding. Many seemed genuinely upset. Zictal knelt beside Dr. Park Sora's body, his forehands shaking. "This is terrible," he said to Lee Dae-ho. "We never expected violence here." Kepler 442 is neutral ground. Other alien leaders gathered around the survivors. They spoke in worried voices about the situation and unfortunate circumstances. "We must handle this carefully," said the tree-like alien. "The Helix Syndicate is powerful. Perhaps we can arrange negotiations for compensation." Negotiations? Lee Dae-ho could barely speak through his pain, but his voice was steady. "You want to negotiate with the things that just murdered our diplomats?" "Violence only creates more violence," replied another alien, this one shaped like a floating jellyfish. "Surely your people understand the value of peaceful solutions." Lee Dae-ho looked around the bloody ceremony hall. He saw Ambassador Choi Ye-jin's body near the wall. Dr. Park So-ra lay beside the alien she had tried to save. Commander Kim Tae-min had fallen protecting others, his weapon still in his hand. The alien leaders were already talking about meetings and treaties and careful diplomatic steps. They wanted to discuss reparations and non-aggression pacts. Some even suggested that humans should consider relocating to avoid future conflicts. Lee Dae-ho stood up slowly, blood seeping through his uniform. Every alien in the room turned to listen to Earth's senior surviving representative. "You don't understand," he said quietly. His voice carried across the silent hall. "Humans don't negotiate with killers." The aliens looked confused. They had expected anger or grief or pleas for help. They had not expected the cold certainty in his voice. "Captain," said Zictal carefully, "surely you see that revenge will only bring more death. The Galactic Council has ways to handle these situations." Lee Dae-ho looked at him with eyes like winter. "This isn't about revenge. This is about consequences." The surviving humans gathered their dead and returned to the New Horizon. As they prepared to leave Kepler 442, every alien species tried to offer condolences and start diplomatic discussions about the incident. Lee Dae-ho ignored them all. He sent one message to Earth. Mission failed. First contact was a massacre. Prepare for war. As the New Horizon jumped to hyperspace, heading home with its cargo of bodies and survivors, none of the aliens understood what they had just witnessed. They thought they had seen humans at their weakest moment. They were wrong. They had seen humans learn a lesson that would reshape the galaxy. The lesson was simple. Some lines should never be crossed. Some acts demand absolute consequences. The galaxy had just taught humanity that peaceful contact was impossible. Now humanity would teach the galaxy what humans did when peace failed. The video played on every screen across human space. Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies, the distant mining stations near Alpha Centauri. Everyone saw the massacre. The footage was clear and brutal. It showed Ambassador Choi Ye-jin trying to negotiate even as the Nagthul surrounded her. It showed Dr. Park So-ra dying while helping an alien. It showed Commander Kim Tae-min making his last stand. Admiral Kang Woo-jin watched the video for the 100th time in his office on Luna Base. He was 60 years old, with steel gray hair and scars from the Mars Rebellion 30 years ago. As Supreme Commander of Earth's combined fleet, he had seen war before. But this was different. "This was murder, sir," said General Nam Yun-soo, entering the office. She was the director of Terra Defense Corps, a woman who had built Earth's military from a planetary defense force into something much more dangerous. "The other colonies are asking for orders. What do we tell them?" Kang Woo-jin turned off the screen. "We tell them to prepare." "Prepare for what, sir?" "War." General Nam Yun-soo nodded. She had expected this answer. "The Galactic Council is still sending diplomatic messages. They want to arrange talks about the incident." "Let them talk," Kang Woo-jin said. "We're done talking." Dr. Yoon Ji-ho knocked and entered the office. She was head of military research and development, a thin woman with quick eyes and quicker hands. She had been working without sleep since the New Horizon returned. "Admiral, I need to show you something," she said. "We've been analyzing the weapons the Helix Syndicate used. Their technology is advanced but not impossible to counter. More importantly, we've found weaknesses." She activated a holographic display showing alien ship designs. "They build for intimidation and overwhelming force. But they don't plan for enemies who fight smart instead of strong." Kang Woo-jin studied the data. "How long do you need?" 6 months for basic countermeasures. 2 years for what I really want to build." "You have both." the Admiral said. Whatever you need. Whatever it costs. Colonel Bae Hyunwoo was already training the first volunteers when the order came down from Luna Base. He was an expert in unconventional warfare, a man who understood that the best battles were won before the enemy knew they had started. The volunteers came from every human world. They were soldiers, yes, but also engineers, scientists, artists, teachers, people who had watched the massacre video and decided they could not let it stand. Forget everything you know about fair fighting, Bae Hyunwoo told his first class of trainees. Fair fighting is what got our diplomats killed. We're going to fight the human way. What's the human way, sir? Asked a young Marine from Europa. Simple, the colonel replied. We make the enemy too scared to sleep. Meanwhile, the galaxy tried to make sense of humanity's silence. All human trade had stopped overnight. Human ships disappeared from common space routes. Colonies that had welcomed alien visitors suddenly went dark. The Vectar sent dozens of messages expressing sorrow about the massacre. The crystal beings composed beautiful songs of mourning. Even species that humans had never met before sent offers of alliance and support. All messages went unanswered. It's like they just vanished, Ziktal told the Galactic Council. Every human frequency is silent. Their merchant ships aren't flying scheduled routes. Even their research stations have gone quiet. The council members debated what this meant. Some thought humans were mourning their dead. Others worried they were planning something dangerous. Perhaps they need time to process their grief, suggested the tree-like alien who had tried to mediate at Kepler 442. Humans seemed very emotional at first contact. Emotional. Species often need extended periods to handle trauma, agreed the floating jellyfish representative. We should give them space to heal. But Ziktal remembered Captain Lee Dae-ho's eyes in those final moments. I don't think they're grieving, he said quietly. I think they're working. The Helix Syndicate, meanwhile, grew bolder. Their leader, a Nagthul named Sektar, broadcast victory messages across known space. The so-called humans have shown their true nature, he hissed into the cameras. They run and hide when faced with superior power. Their space is now forfeit. Any Helix forces may claim human worlds as they see fit. Helix fleets began moving toward human territory. They attacked merchant ships, destroyed communication relays, and planted their flag on abandoned mining stations. Each victory was broadcast to show the galaxy that humans were weak and easily conquered. 3 months after the massacre, a Helix war fleet reached the edge of the Sol system. Sektar himself commanded from the flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Death of Hope. This will be simple, he told his officers as they dropped out of hyperspace near Pluto. Humans have no real military. We destroy Earth and this embarrassing chapter ends. The fleet had 50 ships armed with weapons that had conquered a dozen worlds. They moved toward Earth in perfect formation, confident and loud, broadcasting demands for immediate surrender. They were halfway to Jupiter when the first ship exploded. There had been no warning. No alarm, no incoming missile signature. The destroyer on the fleet's left flank simply erupted into light and disappeared. Report, Sektar screamed. Where did that come from? His sensor operators stared at their screens in confusion. Unknown, Commander. There's nothing out there. No ships, no weapons platforms, no... Another ship exploded, then another. All ships evasive maneuvers, Sektar ordered. Find the attackers. But there was nothing to find. The Helix ships twisted and turned, firing wildly at empty space. Every few minutes, another ship would simply vanish in a ball of fire. By the time they reached Jupiter's orbit, the Helix fleet had lost 15 ships to an enemy they couldn't see. Sektar was beginning to panic when his communications officer received a message. Sir, we're getting a transmission. It's from Earth. A human face appeared on the main screen. It was Admiral Kang Woo-jin, sitting calmly in his office on Luna Base. I am Admiral Kang Woo-jin of the Terran Combined Fleet, he said in perfect galactic standard. You have entered our space with hostile intent. You will turn around and leave immediately. Sektar laughed, though his voice shook slightly. You think we fear your tricks, human? Show yourselves and fight. We are fighting, Kang Woo-jin replied. You just can't see us yet. 3 more Helix ships exploded. This is impossible, Sektar screamed. Nothing is there. Our sensors show empty space. Your sensors show what we want them to show, the Admiral said. This is your only warning. Leave now or join your dead ships. Sektar was about to respond when his flagship's hull began to buckle. Emergency klaxons wailed as structural beams twisted and broke. The death of hope, the pride of the Helix fleet, was being crushed by invisible forces. "Retreat!" Sektar screamed. "All ships retreat." The surviving Helix vessels fled toward the edge of the system. As they ran, Admiral Kang Woo-jin's voice followed them on all frequencies. "Tell your leaders what you learned here," he said calmly. "Humans don't negotiate with killers, but we're happy to teach them consequences." When the beaten fleet finally escaped to hyperspace, they left behind 37 destroyed ships and a message the galaxy would never forget. Humanity was no longer hiding. Back in his office, Admiral Kang Woo-jin turned to General Nam Yoon-soo. "Phase 1 complete. How are the other preparations coming?" "Ahead of schedule, sir. Dr. Yoon Ji-ho's new weapons are ready for field testing. Colonel Bae Hyun-woo's special teams are in position. All human worlds report ready for Phase 2. Kang Woo-jin nodded and looked out his window at Earth, blue and peaceful in the distance. "Then it's time to show the galaxy what happens when you kill our people." The silence was over. The storm was about to begin. The first sign that something had changed came from Zirion Prime, the Helix Syndicate's main military base. The planet was home to 50 million Nagthul soldiers and civilians, protected by orbital defense stations and a fleet of warships. One day it was there. The next day it wasn't. "What do you mean, gone?" asked Council Representative Ziktal during the emergency session. The Helix messenger, a scared-looking Nagthul named Vexpol, could barely speak. "Gone, Honored One. The entire planet, where Zarion Prime used to be, there is now just glass." "Glass?" "The planet's surface has been turned into smooth black glass. No buildings, no life, no radiation, no debris. Just a dead ball of glass where our strongest world used to be." The council chamber fell silent. 50 million beings didn't just disappear. Planets didn't turn into glass overnight. Yet the sensor readings were clear. Zarion Prime was gone. "Who did this?" asked the tree-like representative. Vexpol's voice was a whisper. "We found one thing. A message burned into the glass in letters 10 kilometers high. In our own language. What did it say?" "You started this. We will finish it." Captain Oh Min-sik smiled as he read the report from his command chair aboard the Silent Vengeance. The stealth destroyer was one of Dr. Yoon Ji-ho's masterpieces, a ship that could phase in and out of normal space, invisible to all known sensors. "Target acquired," reported his weapons officer. "Helix patrol fleet, 7 ships moving through the Kethalon system." "Good," Min-sik replied. He was 35 years old, with steady hands and cold eyes. Before the massacre, he had been a cargo pilot. Now he was death incarnate. "Battle stations. Let's say hello." The Helix patrol never saw them coming. The Silent Vengeance appeared like a ghost, fired once and vanished again. The lead Helix ship exploded so completely that the debris field looked like space dust. The remaining ships panicked, spinning in circles and firing at empty space. Min-sik's ship materialized behind them, destroyed 2 more vessels and disappeared again. "This is Fleet Commander Zektar," screamed the Helix leader over all channels. "Show yourselves, cowards. Fight with honor." Min-sik opened a comm channel. When he spoke, his voice was calm and pleasant. "Honor? You mean like the honor your people showed our diplomats? You murdered civilians," Zektar accused. "No," Min-sik replied as he destroyed another ship. "We're conducting a military operation. Your civilians are the ones you're hiding behind." By the time the Silent Vengeance was finished, only 1 Helix ship remained. Min-sik let it escape, knowing the survivor would spread the word. Humans could strike anywhere, anytime, and there was no defense. Major Shin Da-yoon crouched in the ventilation shaft of a Helix military base on Targon III. She was 28 years old, small and quiet, with skills that made her perfect for Colonel Bae Hyun-woo's ghost companies. Below her, Helix officers planned their next attack on human colonies. They felt safe on their fortified world, protected by shields and guards. They were wrong. Da-yoon had been inside the base for 3 days, invisible and patient. She had placed her devices in key locations and gathered intelligence about enemy plans. Now it was time to leave her calling card. The explosion wasn't large, just enough to destroy the main computer core and kill the lights. In the darkness that followed, Helix soldiers found something that would haunt their nightmares. Their commander's body was arranged in the center of the room, positioned to point toward a star chart. The chart showed the location of Earth with a message written in the commander's blood. "We know where you sleep." The other officers were found in different rooms, each one positioned to point toward different human colonies. Under each body was a photograph of a victim from the Kepler 442 massacre, along with a simple note. "This is for Ambassador Choi Ye-jin. This is for Dr. Park So-ra. This is for Commander Kim Tae-min." Major Shin Da-eun was already light years away when the base security found the bodies. But her message was clear. Nowhere was safe. No base was secure. Humans could reach anyone, anywhere. Engineer Lim Jun-ho worked in a secret facility on Ceres, building what he called humanity's gifts. He was 42 years old, with clever fingers and a mind that saw possibilities others missed. Before the war, he had designed mining equipment and construction tools. Now he designed nightmares. "The nanomachine swarm is ready for testing," he reported to Dr. Yoon Ji-ho via secure link. "Phase 1 converts enemy technology into basic materials. Phase 2 rebuilds those materials into art installations." "What kind of art?" she asked. Lim Jun-ho smiled. "The kind that sends a message." The first test came when a Helix supply convoy stopped at the trading post on Velkar Station. The convoy's cargo holds were filled with weapons and equipment bound for Helix frontline units. While the crews took shore leave, Lim Jun-ho's nanomachines went to work. The tiny machines spread through the ships like invisible spiders, taking apart weapons and rebuilding them into something else. When the convoy reached its destination, the Helix soldiers opened the cargo holds to find their weapons had been transformed. Laser rifles had become metal sculptures of human children. Armor plating had been reformed into playground equipment. Ammunition had become toys and musical instruments. At the center of each cargo hold stood a statue built from recycled tank parts. Each statue showed a human diplomat with arms outstretched in greeting. At the base of each statue, a plaque read, "We came in peace." The Helix soldiers who found the cargo were too terrified to remove the statues. Word spread that human technology could think for itself, could turn weapons into art while people slept. Intelligence Officer Park Soo-jin ran her operation from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. She was 30 years old with a psychology degree and a gift for understanding fear. "Fear is a weapon," she told her team of analysts. "Used correctly, it's more powerful than any gun." Park Soo-jin's specialty was intercepting enemy communications and broadcasting them back to the galaxy. She wanted everyone to hear what happened when humans went to war. The first broadcast came from a Helix commander reporting to his superiors. "We've lost 3 fleets in 2 days. These humans, they fight like demons. They appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish before we can respond." The second broadcast was even better. "Request immediate reinforcements. My soldiers refuse to patrol. They say the humans leave bodies arranged in patterns that spell out our ship's registry codes. How do they even know our codes?" The third broadcast made Park Soo-jin smile. "Please, honored command, let us negotiate with the humans. They destroyed our base on Kethmar and left our flag folded into the shape of a burial shroud. My troops are deserting. They say the humans are everywhere, watching, waiting." She made sure these messages reached every species in the galaxy. She wanted them to understand that the beings who had murdered human diplomats were now begging for mercy. But her masterpiece came when she intercepted a message from Sektar himself, the Nagthul who had led the massacre at Kepler 442. In the message, the once proud warrior was crying as he spoke to Helix Command. "They know everything. They know my name, my family, my homeworld. Last night I found a human photograph on my pillow. It showed my children playing in our garden. How did they get inside my ship? How do they know where I am?" Park Soo-jin broadcast Sektar's breakdown across the galaxy. She wanted everyone to hear the terror in his voice as he begged his superiors to arrange a surrender. The message ended with Sektar's final words. "We should have never touched the humans. They don't fight wars. They conduct extinctions." Within 6 months, the Helix Syndicate was in full retreat, their fleet scattered to distant systems. Their bases emptied as soldiers deserted. Their leaders went into hiding, too afraid to show their faces. The galaxy watched in shock as the mighty Helix war machine crumbled before an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Species that had feared Helix expansion for centuries suddenly found themselves free. But the other alien races were beginning to worry. If humans could do this to the Helix Syndicate, what could they do to anyone else? The answer came when the Galactic Council finally received a formal message from Earth. It was delivered by a single human ship that appeared in Council space without any escort. The message was simple. The Helix Syndicate will pay for murdering our people. Any species that aided them will share their fate. Any species that stands with us will have our protection. Choose wisely. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced a simple truth. Humanity had become the most dangerous force in known space. And they had done it in less than a year. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you made enemies of humans. The Galactic Council meeting was chaos. Representatives from 12 species shouted at each other in the Great Chamber, while security guards struggled to maintain order. The emergency session had been called after the complete collapse of the Helix Syndicate, but no one could agree on what to do about the humans. "They've gone too far," screeched the Mordak representative, a bird-like creature with metallic feathers. 50 billion Helix citizens are refugees. Entire worlds have been abandoned. "The Helix murdered human diplomats in cold blood," replied Ziktal of the Vectar. "What did you expect would happen?" "We expected civilized behavior," snapped the jellyfish-like Vellani ambassador. "Not this. This systematic destruction." Council leader Tekamara, an ancient being who looked like Livingstone, called for silence with a sound like grinding mountains. "The question before us is simple. Do we treat humanity as a threat to galactic peace, or do we acknowledge their right to seek justice?" "Justice?" The Mordak representative laughed bitterly. "They turned inhabited planets into glass. They made an entire species run in terror. This isn't justice, it's extermination." Before anyone could respond, alarms began wailing throughout the station. The massive doors to the council chamber slid open, revealing something that made every representative freeze in shock. A human fleet had arrived. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They seemed to bend light around their hulls, making them hard to look at directly. Some appeared to phase in and out of reality. Others looked like they were built from crystallized space itself. At the center of the fleet was a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest council battleships. It moved with impossible grace, as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. Fleet Admiral Ryu Tae-hyung stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Terra's Fury, watching the council station through the main screen. He was 50 years old, with silver hair and the bearing of a man who had remade himself for war. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving frantic messages from the station. They're demanding to know our intentions." "Open a channel to the council chamber," Ryu Tae-hyung ordered. It's time they heard humanity's voice. Captain An Yuna piloted the newest addition to the human fleet, a ship called the Consequence. It was her design, built around a weapon system that had taken 2 years to perfect. She was 33 years old, with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much death. "Permission to demonstrate our capabilities, Admiral?" she asked over the comm. "Granted, Captain. Choose a suitable target." An Yuna smiled coldly as she selected a small moon orbiting the council station. It was uninhabited, nothing but rock and ice. Perfect for her purposes. "Firing extinction protocol," she announced. The weapon that fired from the Consequence didn't look like much, just a beam of twisted light that lasted for 3 seconds. But when it struck the moon, the entire celestial body simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not shattered, just gone, as if it had never been there at all. The silence in the council chamber was absolute. "That," said Fleet Admiral Ryu Tae-hyung as his image appeared on the main screen, "was a demonstration. The next one will not be aimed at an empty moon." Council leader Thekmara found his voice first. "Admiral, Ryu Tae-hyung, is it? We welcome this opportunity for dialogue. Perhaps we can discuss—" "There is nothing to discuss," the Admiral interrupted. "You had months to respond to the massacre of our people. Instead, you talked about negotiations and careful diplomacy. You enabled murderers and called it peacekeeping." Strategist Ko Hyung-tae appeared beside the Admiral on the screen. He was a thin man with calculating eyes who had spent months preparing for this moment. "We know which species provided weapons to the Helix Syndicate," Ko Hyung-tae said calmly. "We know which governments funded their expansion. We know which council members voted to delay action after the massacre." He activated a holographic display showing detailed intelligence reports. The Mordak Republic supplied 70% of Helix weapons. The Vellani Collective provided financing for their fleet expansion. The Kethran Empire offered sanctuary to Helix leaders after their defeat. The accused representatives tried to speak, but Ko Hyung-tae continued. 3 other species provided intelligence about human colony locations. 2 more offered to join Helix attacks if they proved successful. "This is outrageous," screeched the Mordak representative. "You have no proof of—" Ko Hyung-tae smiled and played an audio recording. The Mordak representative's own voice filled the chamber. "If the Helix can break human expansion, we will all benefit. I say we give them whatever they need." Similar recordings followed for each accused species. Private conversations, secret meetings, classified communications. Humanity had been listening to everything. "How?" whispered Council Leader Thekmara. "How did you intercept our most secure channels?" "We learned from the best," replied Admiral Ryu Tae-hyung. "Every species in this galaxy taught us something useful. The Vectar taught us patience. The Lumanis taught us precision. The Helix Syndicate taught us that sometimes the only answer to violence is overwhelming force." Diplomat Han Seo-jun stepped forward on the screen. He was 40 years old, with kind eyes that had grown cold since the massacre. Before the war, he had been a philosophy professor. Now he spoke for humanity's new place in the galaxy. "The age of negotiating with killers is over," Han Seo-jun announced. "From this day forward, Earth offers a simple choice to every species in the galaxy. Stand with justice or fall with the criminals you protect." The terms were not negotiable. Species that had aided the Helix Syndicate would face complete economic isolation. Their fleets would be dismantled. Their expansion would cease. Their leaders would be held accountable for their crimes. "And if we refuse?" asked the Mordak representative, though his voice shook as he spoke. Captain An Yuna answered by targeting another moon. This one was larger, with a small research station on its surface. She waited just long enough for the researchers to evacuate, then fired again. The moon vanished as completely as the first one. "The choice is yours," said Admiral Ryu Tae-hyung. "But understand this, we are not asking for your permission. We are informing you of the new reality." Species after species began broadcasting their acceptance of human terms. The Villani Collective surrendered their entire fleet within hours. The Catherine Empire recalled all military forces to home systems. Even the proud Mordak Republic agreed to pay reparations to human colonies. Only 3 species refused. They were given 24 hours to reconsider. When the deadline passed, human fleets appeared at their core worlds. The surrender that followed was swift and complete. No shots were fired. The mere presence of humanity's impossible ships was enough to break their will to resist. Within a week, the galactic balance of power had shifted completely. Species that had ruled star sectors for millennia found themselves taking orders from a race they had barely known existed a year ago. But humanity's transformation wasn't finished. The final message came from President Moon Ji-woo herself, broadcast from Earth to every inhabited world in known space. She was 55 years old, with graying hair and the bearing of someone who had been forced to make terrible decisions. She had been elected on a platform of never again, and she intended to keep that promise. "People of the galaxy," she began. "1 year ago, humanity reached out to you in friendship. We offered gifts of art, knowledge, and cooperation. In return, our peaceful diplomats were murdered in cold blood while your leaders debated the politics of justice." The camera showed images from the Kepler 442 massacre, then shifted to show the current state of human space. Massive fleet yards orbited every human world. Construction platforms built impossible technologies. Training facilities produced soldiers who could fight like ghosts. "We learned hard lessons from your inaction," President Moon Ji-woo continued. "We learned that peace requires strength. We learned that justice delayed is justice denied. Most importantly, we learned that some crimes demand absolute consequences." The broadcast concluded with a simple statement that would define humanity's role in the galaxy for centuries to come. "We offered to be your friends. You taught us to be your guardians instead. The galaxy is safer now, but that safety came at a price. Remember that price when you see our ships. We could have been explorers together. Instead, we became what your failures made necessary." In the months that followed, alien children would learn to recognize human vessels by their distinctive profiles. Traders would clear shipping lanes when humanity's patrol fleets appeared. Diplomats would settle disputes quickly rather than risk human intervention. The galaxy had a new sheriff, and everyone knew exactly how they had earned the badge. 5 years after the massacre, Kepler 442 station had been completely rebuilt. Where once there had been a neutral meeting ground, now stood the grandest structure in known space, humanity's embassy to the galaxy. The new station was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Gardens filled with earth flowers bloomed beside monuments to the fallen diplomats. Art galleries displayed works from dozens of worlds, while nearby halls housed the most advanced military technology the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Li Hana walked through the memorial garden, reading the names carved into the black stone wall. Every human who died in the massacre was remembered here, their names written in gold letters that caught the light from nearby stars. She paused at Dr. Park Sora's name, remembering the young scientist's excitement about meeting alien cultures. Sora would have loved what the galaxy had become, more peaceful, more cooperative, more afraid to break the rules. Li Hana was 38 years old, with sharp eyes and a voice that could end wars or start them. She had been chosen as humanity's new representative not for her diplomacy, but for her complete inability to compromise with evil. Her office occupied the exact spot where Ambassador Choi Ye-jin had died. The walls were transparent aluminum, offering a view of space in all directions. On her desk sat a simple plaque. Diplomacy is our preference. Annihilation is our backup plan. A soft chime announced a visitor. Ziktal of the Vectar entered, moving carefully on his 4 legs. He was one of the few aliens who had genuinely tried to help during the massacre, and humanity remembered their friends as clearly as they remembered their enemies. Ambassador Li Hana, Ziktal said with a musical bow. I bring a request from the Spiral Coalition. 3 new species wish to join the Galactic Council. Tell me about them, she replied, gesturing to a chair designed for his unique physiology. The first are the Qualin, crystalline beings from the outer rim. They've developed faster than light communication technology that could benefit everyone. The second are the Reshma, agricultural specialists who want to share their farming techniques. The third, Ziktal hesitated. The third are the Nextar. They are militaristic. They've conquered 12 worlds in the past century. Li Hana's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. I see, and what do you recommend? The first 2 species seem genuinely peaceful. The Qualin have never fought a war. The Reshma have actually prevented conflicts by solving food shortages. But the Nextar, Ziktal's forearms moved nervously. They remind me of the Helix Syndicate. Then you know what my answer will be. The Nextar won't like being rejected. They've threatened to take what they want by force. Ambassador Li Hana smiled, and Ziktal remembered why even friendly aliens were careful around humans these days. Let them try. It's been too long since we've had a proper demonstration, Admiral. Park Junseo commanded humanity's frontier guard from the massive battle station Guardians. Watch. The station sat at the edge of known space, a fortress that watched for threats before they could organize. He was 45 years old, with scars from the early days of the war and eyes that never stopped scanning for danger. His job was simple: make sure no one ever surprised humanity again. Admiral, reported his intelligence chief, we're detecting unusual activity in the Nextar Empire. Large fleet movements, weapons testing, propaganda broadcasts about inferior species. How large are their fleets? Park Junseo asked. Approximately 3,000 ships across 50 worlds. Their technology is advanced but conventional. Energy weapons, kinetic shields, standard hyperdrives. Admiral Park Junseo nodded. And their leadership? Typical military hierarchy. They believe strength equals right to rule. Their Emperor Kexvar has publicly stated that weak species exist to serve strong ones. I see. The Admiral turned to his communications officer. Send a message to Earth. The Nextar Empire requires education about the new galactic reality. President Moon Ji-woo read the report in her office overlooking Seoul. Outside her window, the city bustled with activity from dozens of alien species who had come to trade, learn, or simply bask in the protection that human space offered. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity had become the galaxy's safe haven by becoming its most dangerous predator. Ma'am, said her aide, the Nextar Emperor is demanding an immediate audience. He says he won't negotiate with underlings. Moon Ji-woo laughed. Tell him I'll be happy to meet with him. But he comes here to Earth alone and unarmed. Ma'am, his response was unprintable in most languages. Then I suppose we'll have to teach him manners. The education of the Nextar Empire began 3 days later, when their patrol fleet encountered something impossible. A single human ship appeared in their territory. Not a massive dreadnought or a stealth destroyer, but a simple courier vessel. The Nextar commander, Wextel, laughed when his sensors detected the lone ship. One vessel? The humans send one ship to face our entire fleet? His laughter died when the human ship began to change. Its hull shifted and flowed like liquid metal, growing larger and sprouting weapon systems that defied physics. Within minutes, the small courier had transformed into something that looked like a living nightmare. "This is Captain Yoon Dai-Soo of the human vessel Consequence," came a calm voice over the radio. "You are trespassing in space under human protection. Leave now or be removed." Wextel's fleet opened fire with everything they had: energy beams, missile swarms, kinetic projectiles, enough firepower to destroy a small planet. The human ship absorbed every shot without taking damage. "Interesting," Captain Yoon Dai-Soo commented. "Is that your best effort?" What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The Consequence didn't just fight the Nextar fleet, it played with them. Ships found their weapons turning against their own allies. Navigation systems began plotting courses into stars. Communication systems broadcast embarrassing personal messages from crew members to their families back home. When the demonstration was over, half the Nextar fleet had been destroyed by their own weapons. The other half sat dead in space, their crews too terrified to move. "Tell your emperor that Earth is still willing to talk," Captain Yoon Dai-Soo said pleasantly. "But the next lesson will be more permanent." Emperor Kexvar's response was predictably violent. The Nextar Empire mobilized every ship they had and launched a full invasion of the sectors under human protection. The war lasted exactly 6 hours. Historian Kim Yu-ri would later write that the Second Galactic War was less a battle than an educational seminar. Human forces appeared everywhere the Nextar struck, always in smaller numbers but with capabilities that turned physics into poetry. Nextar ships found themselves fighting duplicates of themselves, perfect copies that knew every weakness and tactical doctrine. Nextar commanders received personal visits from human soldiers who walked through solid walls and left behind photographs of the commanders' families with simple messages. "We know where you live." The final blow came when Emperor Kexvar's own flagship was somehow transported into Earth's orbit. The massive dreadnought appeared above New York City, its crew unharmed but completely helpless. President Moon Jae-woo's voice filled the ship's bridge. "Emperor Kexvar, this is your final lesson. Look out your viewports and see what you chose to threaten." Below them, Earth spread out in all its blue-green beauty. Cities full of humans and aliens living together, space elevators carrying trade goods to the stars, children from a dozen species playing in parks that had been built from the wreckage of the Helix Syndicate's war fleet. "This is what we protect," the president continued. "Not just our own species, but everyone who chooses peace over violence. Everyone who believes that strength should defend the weak, not prey upon them." The Emperor's surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. Like the Helix Syndicate before them, the Nextar Empire was dismantled, its conquered worlds freed, its leaders held accountable for their crimes. But humanity's message was bigger than any single victory. The galaxy now understood that the age of conquest was over. Wars of aggression would be met with absolute force. Species that preyed upon others would face extinction. Ambassador Lee Ha-na stood once again in the memorial garden. But this time she wasn't alone. Representatives from 47 species had gathered for the dedication of the new monument. A statue showing Dr. Park So-ra helping an injured Vectar, just as she had in her final moments. "She died trying to help someone who wasn't human," Lee Ha-na said to the assembled crowd. "That's what we wanted to be, a species that helped others, that explored together, that built something beautiful among the stars." She paused, looking at the faces around her, some familiar, some alien, all respectful. "You took that dream away from us," she continued, "but in its place you gave us a purpose. We became your guardians because you couldn't guard yourselves. We became your judges because you wouldn't judge evil. We became your protectors because you were too weak to protect the innocent." A young alien, one of the new species seeking council membership, raised a tentacled hand. "Ambassador, what happens now? Will humanity always rule the galaxy?" Lee Ha-na smiled, and for a moment she looked less like a terrible authority and more like the teacher she had once dreamed of being. We don't want to rule you, she said gently. We never did. All we ever wanted was for